We actually had an ET vehicle come right into the valley, and we had an ET voice materialize right in the center of the group that we recorded, that's on this video. I think we're actually the leadership of the world, everyone in this room, all of us who are conscious and awake. And because when you do something from a higher level of consciousness and a deep state of samadhi, and you intend it from there, that's how you manifest reality. And this is exactly what the CIA director, Woolsey, said to me. How do we disclose that which we have no access and control over? This would highlight the biggest constitutional crisis in American history, and nobody wants that to happen who are in power. So they take a pass on it. They kick the can down the road and into my lap, and now into your lap. This information has to be supported by the public, and then we found it was. And not only by the public, but by other governments. But the crown jewel of the secrecy, though, is the United States. Because the United States Department of Defense has about $1 trillion budget. They acknowledge about $700 billion. Then you've got Homeland Security, CIA, NSA, other entities. It's around $1 trillion a year of our tax money. But what they don't realize is that within that trillion, there's about $200 billion a year going into so-called black projects. And this is what Rumsfeld was talking about. And over the years, it's been trillions of dollars. It's just missing. So one of the problems is that if you have an entity that can make off with hundreds of billions of dollars a year, and then also has become self-funding through the drug trade, all right, this is true. They don't like me talking about this. At Pahut Mesa, there's $40 billion in various currencies in a vault at Nellis Air Force Base from the drug trade. 40 billion sitting there in cash. I have guys who've seen this on my team. So what you find is that there's an enormous amount of funding that goes into these things, and it's very, very dark. And those guys are the hardliners. And when you get into this world of what are called unacknowledged special access projects, let me explain how they work. An unacknowledged a special access project just means it's a top secret clearance and it's a compartment. An unacknowledged one works like this. Let's say this man is a 4-star general and I'm a colonel. And so he's technically my commander-in-chief. And I'm in an unacknowledged special access project. Now, I have been told that if I tell anyone who's not in that project about its very existence, that there's a bullet with my name on it. Absolutely. Now, I have many guys on my team who've been in these projects, and they're for real. This is not a conspiracy theory. If the 4-star general calls me in because he's gotten whiff of this, I am to turn to my commander, my senior, and say, sir, no such project exists. That's exactly what happens when the president and some of the people at the Pentagon that I have briefed ask about these issues. So there has been a complete decapitation of the chain of command in the United States. And so this sort of silent coup d'etat that happened in the mid-50s is what we're living through now. And this is why the president doesn't want to talk about this. No president wants to admit that they're the emperor has no clothes. No president wants to admit that they're head of a government that has been completely emasculated and neutralized for 50-some years. And that's the situation today. I had a G7 country that we hosted last year in Washington, G7 being the top 7 industrialized powers in the world. And this country wrote a letter to me as the director of the Disclosure Project in CSETI, Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. This letter is the most important UFO document from any government in the history of the world. And here's an irony, I can't release it, because I would burn my bridges to this country. But this country wants to do contact with us. And so we have actually traveled to this country and are teaching their top people, their scientists, and their political leaders how to make peaceful contact. But this is an astonishing announcement I'm making, actually. And so when you see this happening, you know that it's reached critical mass. It's the Rupert Sheldrake concept of morphogenic fields. The consciousness has happened because you have a major G7 country saying, and it's beautiful, the wording in this letter says, we want to go on a long-term journey with you into space, making contact with these interstellar visitors. It's beautiful. This from the senior most levels of a Ministry of Defense of a major G7 country. Beautiful. This all in the just last 3 years or so. Now, what you find is that these sort of friendlies to disclosure and contact are intimidated by the hostile ones that are in these unacknowledged projects, who don't mind killing people. And so they're waiting for leadership from the United States political establishment. But then now you're going to see a catch-22 here. But then the United States political establishment, the president, the CIA director, Leon Panetta, I put together this briefing, gave it to him as well, the head of the Intelligence Committee for the Congress. These sort of people, once they find out about these, the reality of this, they think, well, what can I do about it if I don't control them? And this is exactly what the CIA director, Woolsey, said to me. How do we disclose that which we have no access and control over? This would highlight the biggest constitutional crisis in American history, and nobody wants that to happen who are in power. So they take a pass on it. They kick the can down the road and into my lap, and now into your lap. So it's our task now. You see? That's how this is the Washington two-step. And that's how it works. I swear to God. So now, to give you an idea of how deep this runs, is that I did a briefing for the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And this man, who is an admiral, was given a document that I have here, and it's now on our website, disclosureproject.org, and it's a National Reconnaissance Office document that lists the project names and code numbers. And it's from the 1990s. It's not from an old one from the 50s. So at the time I did this briefing, this was all fairly recent actionable intelligence, what we call actionable intelligence. So this guy wanted to know about this subject, so he called up this one compartment that he recognized and said, look, this is Admiral so-and-so, I'm the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And the people who are working that operation said, yes, sir, we know who you are. Of course. I mean, it's the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the biggest military in the world, so you think they have some juice here, huh? And they say, and he says, well, I want to be read into this project. And they say, sir, we cannot discuss this project with you. You don't have a need to know. And he says, well, God damn it, if I don't have a need to know, who does? And basically, they said, sir, we cannot and will not discuss this with you further. Click. And they broke the line and blocked him. So by the time I came there, I gave all this information to him before I did this stand-up briefing at the Pentagon, where I brought astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who was the sixth man to walk on the moon and all that. And basically what happened is that he said, well, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't have access, and I'm being blocked even though I'm the head of intelligence, Joint Chiefs of Staff. He says, who else has had this happen? I said, well, the President and the Secretary of Defense Cohen and the CIA Director and the Senate Intelligence Committee members I've met with, and the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is the biggest intelligence gathering entity in the Pentagon. It's almost as large as the CIA, the DIA. He says, are all of them being blocked access? I said, yes, because the ones that are in those positions right now are people who are in favor of disclosure, and they're not going to tell you. He says, well, who is in this? I said, you have to be willing to take a blood oath to the secrecy and to World War III and interplanetary war. And none of you guys want that, do you? He says, oh no. I said, that's where we're headed. What are you going to do about it? He says, what can I do? The best thing I have is a B-2 stealth bomber. And these guys have their own Air Force and Space Force of anti-gravity things that people see launching out of here. If you go up to the high desert, you'll see them come out of Edwards at 3 or 4 in the morning. So the question becomes, who's zooming who here? What government's really running the show? And it's not the people we elect and appoint. Now, could they get control of it? Yes. But they'd have to have a lot of courage. And that's what's missing. So what I tell people is that the thing that all of you have that they don't have is moral courage and the knowledge and the spirituality to do this. And that's why all of you can become ambassadors from Earth to these civilizations. All of you can become a point of change that then radiates out non-locally through consciousness to the 7 billion children of Earth. That's how consciousness happens. That's how change happens. And if you understand that dynamic, you understand how powerful a few people are. Now, the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, cseti.org, we've now trained a couple thousand people all over the world to do this. And we're going to actually do a 3-day event in Orange County down here in Irvine, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday if you guys want to come. And it's going to be an event where we, during the afternoon, we go into how to go into remote viewing states, meditative states, and contact using consciousness. And then we're going to go out under the stars or the clouds, I don't care what it is, we always go out. And we're going to make contact at this canyon in State Park that is we've reserved just for the group, that's closed at night, and we're going to have access to it. And when we were there about 15 months ago, we actually had an ET vehicle come right into the valley, and we had an ET voice materialize right in the center of the group that we recorded, that's on this video. Now, one of the amazing things about this is that when you realize that every human being can contact them this way, then you understand that the power of control that this other group has is a paper tiger, completely. And it's all in your mind. So free your mind. And that's what I really want to share today, is how to free your mind from that and be the people who make contact and do disclosure and help the OrionProject.org bring these energy devices out, because it's very, very unlikely that we're going, now, I still provide briefings to people like the President and members of Congress, and there's some great support we have in Washington and in Paris and in London and other countries, but I really see the change happening from us. I see the change happening from people like you and me, rather than the people who we think are leading the world. Because I think we're actually the leadership of the world, everyone in this room. All of us who are conscious and awake. And because when you do something from a higher level of consciousness and a deep state of samadhi, and you intend it from there, that's how you manifest reality. That's how I manifested the Disclosure Project, being a country doctor in North Carolina. That's how I manifested CSETI. That's how we manifest contact. That's how we're going to manifest a whole new world. Because here is the world all of you know the world we're living in today, which can be rather oppressively depressing when you contemplate it, with the poverty and the wars and the corruption. However, there's only a few people who really benefit from that system. It's like in Egypt, there were a handful of generals and people benefited from that system. The rest didn't. That's why 40% were in poverty. But what you realize is that the people who are in this system, it's sort of like the Matrix, and I'm Morpheus giving you a red pill here. You are the guys, all of you are the ones who can awaken and effect change immediately and easily. And that's the message of great hope, because here's the world that is not on the far horizon any longer, but is right here, very close. A world where we have open contact with ET civilizations peacefully. A world where all of these sciences and wondrous sciences and technologies that have been withheld from the earth for 100 years are unveiled and benefit all the children of earth. And with that, the abolition of economic slavery and poverty in a generation, I mean literally in 20 years, there would be no poverty on earth, none. The healing of the earth's biosphere would take place in 10 to 20 years. All nuclear waste and chemical waste could be transmuted into inert, benign materials. These technologies are extant on earth today. This is what the world we can have. And on the foundation of that justice and abundance, we can have peace. Because we're no longer going to have to play one race or one people or one religion or one group over another in order to advance another species. But be careful. Let's not unite the world against what Wernher von Braun warned about, the false alien threat. This is the biggest problem with disclosure. This is the hugest problem. For years, I've thought of retiring from doing any of this, because so much of my work has been hijacked by charlatans who have then turned it into Alien Invasion or Invasion LA. And people come to my things, they find information, and they turn it into a horror flick. They take the stuff we've done and they turn it into another book, and they'll tell you that the evil reptilians and the Greys are here to eat us for lunch, and the Venusians and the ones that look like they came from Scandinavia are our friends, and we're going to have this big. This is all part of a Manichaean, absurd paradigm propounded and actually forced out onto the public through either unwitting dupes of the intelligence community or the intelligence community itself. And the purpose of it is to cause people to have a new enemy. And even if you say, well, there are 1,000 ET species out there that are good, but there are a couple that are bad and we need to resist them and fight them, they've got you. They've got you in the Manichaean, they've got the new enemy. And that's what they want you to believe. This is why so much work went into PLFs, programmed life forms. And if you look at the videotapes of some of the things like what Stan Romanek, I've been at his home, that one that's in his kitchen that's going like this, that's actually one of the PLFs. And the intelligence community had called him up and said, Stan, this is one of the fake ones. Now, he may have had real contact. I don't know. But I know what that one was. That was a robotic, artificial ET, what I call an alien. See, ETs are extraterrestrial, interstellar civilization. Aliens, if you use the word alien, you're talking about the man-made stuff. Because alien is a xenophobic negative word, so I never use it. To me, it's like it's a racist term, alien. I never use it. So the thing that are the aliens are the grays and the reptilian and these other creatures that we've been manufacturing. Now, when did we start doing this? Back in the 40s and 50s. So the facility at Dulce, at the Four Corners area, is a genetics lab. There's a genetics facility at Sandia. There's a facility in Australia. There's a group of physicists I know who work there, and there are these things that look like grays and others coming off a conveyor belt. And they have integrated circuits in their neural complex, and they're put on board these ARVs that look like UFOs, and they use electromagnetic weapon systems and chemicals, and they abduct people. That's what happened to Paris de Cuellar. So and then they have implants. Now the implants, if you look at the implants that are being made, EG&G and a group of other high-tech electronic firms, E-Systems, have been making these in Siemens for decades. If you look at the tape we just released posthumously from a guy named Pollock, disclosureproject.org, top secret guy, he had worked with a man who developed back in the 70s some of the implants that they began to mass produce. Siemens made about 2 billion of them at the time. And these are implants that are RF frequency, radio frequency, and they both connect to satellites, but they can receive signals. And they can affect on a scalar level of what are called psychotronic and radionic type of effects. These are the ones that are being put in people. And you know, the folks who are extracting them, I've looked at the data on it, and I'm going, yeah, but I know who's manufacturing this. Now, what they're going to do is say, see, the aliens have done this. So this is the cosmic 9/11 that none of you know about, and that no one wants to talk about. And this is why I've been blacklisted off of George Nuri's show, because I've talked about this. Coast to Coast won't let me on because I've revealed this. Yeah, that's true. The truth of, yeah, so look, I don't care. I'm going to tell you the truth whether it gives you pleasure or not, because you need to know the truth of who's playing with your mind and why this information has been stopped. They are desperate for people to have a new enemy. Because look, there are 70 Al-Qaeda in all of Afghanistan. This by the acknowledgement of the CIA, 70. This we have 140,000 troops chasing at a cost of over $100 billion a year. Come on. You know, they have to keep this machine alive, and the next big thing to play is the alien card. And we're about a minute, a nanosecond from that. Don't be fooled again. And this is why I am the most hated person in the UFO field. It's because I am absolutely, have the data, I have the documents, I have the witnesses, that in fact, there are abduction squads being run by secret government human entities using programmed life forms and ARVs, alien reproduction vehicles, and very advanced electronics. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is exactly what's happening, and this is why you have all been diseducated. Not miseducated, deliberately diseducated, for the purpose of preparing you. And the New Age and UFO subculture is the vanguard of those purveying this information to others, ironically. So you have all become the carrier vehicles, not all of you, many of you have become the carrier vehicles for launching interplanetary war. What great news. I told you yesterday, some people aren't going to like what I have to tell you. The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. Now, I want to go into what we're really here for, and that is how we've made contact and how you can make contact. Now, in a couple hours, it's hard to cover a whole week's worth of training material, but I want to give you a sense of it because you guys are all conscious, and it's Conscious Living or Conscious Something Conference. What is it? Conscious Some, yeah, Life. Sorry. I'm on a jet every week. I have no idea where I am. I think I'm in LA. But the truth about it is that we have within us something very beautiful, and that is the mind. And the heart of the mind, the heart of the compassion that the Buddha talks about, is the fact that we are all one people. If you look at the logo, it says CSETI, one universe, one people. There's actually one being shining through the eyes of every body in existence, every sentient creature. And when you look at the stars at night, know that every star system that is stable has planets with beings who are capable of knowing this cosmic being, who are awake. That is true. The universe is peopled. I use the word people not in a human sense, but in the sense of intelligent, conscious life. And interestingly, if you understand morphogenic fields, and they have a head, 2 arms, and 2 legs, but they come in all sizes, from a foot or 2 high. I have I was called in on a case where there was one species that's about 18 inches high, and I held the body of the baby in my hands. Y'all know about this? Oh, well, he was dead, but had his head crushed in. We're not sure who killed it. But anyway, an institute I know has this creature, has this being, and Dr. Bravo, who's on our board, and myself were called in because we're doctors, and I'm at a disclosure project to investigate it and look into it. And the institute that has this doesn't know what to do with it, and I'm trying to have them disclose it, but it's tied up in a lot of political problems in another country. But what I'll say is that all these beings, they can be in various sizes. They may be 18 feet tall, or they may be 1.5 feet tall, 18 inches tall. Doesn't matter. But they have a head, 2 arms, 2 legs. Their internal organs may be different. I mean, I've seen various types of internal organs. It's one particular being that I've actually personally held, and I have great photographs of. We could see the neural tissue, but had a very different chest cavity. It had 10 ribs instead of 12. It had, only 1 bone in the lower leg and the forearm instead of 2. You have an owner. Anyway, the anatomy. So, what was interesting is that it was bimorphic, and it was the phenotype, I'm going into science terms. The physical expression was very much like a humanoid, but it had very different features. It had only 4 bones in the skull instead of 6. It had 2 bones that came across in the middle in the forehead instead of 1 frontal bone. I mean, it was totally, anatomy was fascinating from the point of view of being any other doctors here. I mean, it's really fascinating. But what you realize when you have contact, which we have had with hundreds of these different species with CSETI, hundreds, is that they're all conscious. And here's where we're going to all meet. This is where we all come together. Black, white, gay, straight, male, female, Alpha Centauri, Andromeda, Zeta Reticuli, wherever. We're all awake, and the conscious mind is a singularity. And Erwin Schrödinger, who was the father of modern quantum mechanics, said that the mind is a singularity. There's the total number of minds in the universe is 1. And so all of you sitting in this room, you think you're attaching to your ego and your body. But in reality, that exists. But in reality, the mind whereby you're hearing my voice is 1 mind. The awakeness itself, the essence of conscious mind. And when you experience that state, this is the samadhi state, you can then go into a state where you see anywhere in the world, anywhere in space, any place in time, space, anywhere. Because The nature of the conscious mind is that it is omnipresent. It means it's everywhere, and that it's eternal, meaning that it transcends linear space and time. And time simply doesn't exist at the level of transcendent consciousness. So what we're going to go through this afternoon is sort of a discovery of what we really are, who we really are, because we are actually all one being. There's a wonderful Sufi saying, thinkest thyself a puny form when the universe is folded within thee? That literally the entirety of all that exists in creation is folded within every single person. We are all sort of a cosmic hologram of the unbounded. And the entry point to accessing all of that is the conscious mind itself, the awake mind, but not the monkey mind, thinking about lunch and dinner and I have to pee, or whatever. It's okay, it's the, it's the level of consciousness that is beyond thought, beyond time, beyond space, and it is pure peace. And that's the transcendent state, that's the meditative state. And that's why the Vedas are very important, because the mantras that came from the ancient Vedic tradition, which is what we teach, are actually the sound component of pure thoughts that enliven the mind and allow the mind to go into unbounded silent awareness. And that is exactly what we do. We actually do this as a team. That's what we're going to do in Orange County. We're going to spend a whole week in Marco Island, Florida, those of you who can come, next month. And every afternoon we go through this and we do a puja, a Vedic ceremony, and I teach a meditation approach. And then I teach people how to then go into that state and then remote view space, or remote view underground, or remote view another star system, and then connect to the extraterrestrial.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out the next one right here on the Best of Dr. Stephen Greer.